I've been out for a few days.
Okay.
And I tried calling him, no answer. They tried calling him, no answer. They couldn't get away at work today, and I'm coming out now to the off work, and you can't get out the door, and when I look, everything's black. They died. They want to go and check.
Look, Nikki, calm down for me, okay? Nikki.
On Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, the snow-swept town of Bismarck, North Dakota, had their New Year's excitement cut short.
When was the last time you had contact with Chad?
Monday.
Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it? Did you have contact with him at the time?
Oh, we talked on the phone.
On the phone? Okay.
At 5 p.m., Nikki Ensel placed this distressed 911 call from outside her home. She had arrived at her house after a long stay out of town, only to find that a fire raged inside and that her husband, Chad Ensel, had been trapped in the blaze. The fire department found Chad dead in the master bedroom, surrounded by a tank of propane gas, bottles of alcohol, and a double-barrel shotgun.
Nikki, but that's what I want to find out. So why would that happen to Chad?
Like any devastated wife, Nikki sought answers and asked the police to investigate.
Nikki, but why were you so dishonest with me about this? I trusted you.
Nikki would soon realize that the one person she thought law enforcement would never blame was the one they eventually would suspect the most.
I'm going to say that Chad's death was not an accident.
What?
In 2016, Nikki Sue met Chad Ensel at a racing event. By the time Nikki and Chad met, Nikki had amassed 3 separate criminal convictions. In fact, Nikki and Chad married the same year they met in 2016, while Nikki was still on probation, and she and her 2 children moved into Chad's house.
That 911 call hits hard. Nikki sounds desperate, but something feels off. You can hear the panic, yet later we learn she might have known more than she let on. Chad's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a setup. As a spouse, how do you process that betrayal? The life insurance policy screams motive. Let's investigate what happened that night and why Nikki's story unravels.
On the evening of December 30th, Chad Ensel left his home to go bowling, one of his regular hobbies. The CCTV capture of him walking into the bowling alley is the last known video footage we have of Chad still alive. Taking advantage of Chad being out, Nikki and Earl removed several items from Nikki and Chad's home. Together, Nikki and Earl brought all their stuff back to the hotel room where they were staying, and CCTV footage captured them taking multiple trips into and out of Staybridge suites. Chad arrived back home sometime before 1:11 a.m. Between then and 2:56 a.m., Chad's life would be taken. But how? On January 2nd, Chad's co-workers became concerned that he wasn't showing up for work. They decided to make a trip to Chad's home to check on him. They received no response when they knocked on the door, despite seeing Chad's car in the driveway. Having failed to contact Chad, his co-workers called the police, requesting that they perform a welfare check on him. The police also made their way to the property and received no response when they knocked on the door. At 5 p.m., Nikki returned from work and parked in the driveway of her and Chad's home. When she went inside, she was stunned that smoke had filled their house. She called 911.
I've been out for a few days.
Okay.
And I tried calling him, no answer.
The fire department arrived on the scene. They found significant fire damage in the home, but no active fires. They found Chad's body in the bedroom, along with a shotgun, a propane tank, and bottles of whiskey. Fire marshals initially concluded that Chad's death might have been an alcohol-induced accidental suicide. However, a little more searching revealed a very different story. After examining the rest of the house, the fire department concluded that 2 separate fires had been started in the home, one on the furnace and one in the bedroom. Interestingly enough, fire marshals also found traces of fire accelerant on both the furnace and the bedroom. Interesting, but when the police arrived on the scene, the list of inconsistencies only grew. They noticed that shotgun pellets were lodged in the bedroom wall at an angle that was not consistent with Chad having shot himself. By this point, the police have strong suspicions that foul play was involved.
The scene's chilling. Propane, whiskey, a shotgun. At first, it looks like a suicide, but the fire accelerant and pellet angles scream foul play. Nikki and Earl thought they could stage it perfectly, but the evidence doesn't lie. Imagine Chad, unaware, bowling in his last game. It's heartbreaking to think his trust was exploited. How did they think they'd get away with this?
Get through this and get it done. Like I said, I cleared my schedule. I might have to jump out to take a phone call here now and then, just because I can't completely hide away. Once again, I apologize so much. I couldn't get back to you. Like I said, I was in court. Judge doesn't let me take phone calls or anything, so.
In most police interrogations conducted in the United States, officers begin with the immediate application of the Reid technique. The Reid method is very effective, as it is meant breaks down the interviewee's barriers and resistance to being questioned, eventually leading to a confession from the guilty party. However, this method is critiqued precisely because it is so good at extracting confessions, which later may turn out to be false. In Mickey's case, the inspector began with an approach similar to the peace method, which was much more friendly, open, and encouraged Nikki to tell her entire version of the story with minimal interruption.
I'm sorry, I just needed...
No, Nikki, you don't have to apologize for that.
From the start of the interrogation footage, Nikki also has a clear approach. She tries to play on the inspector's friendliness, getting him to view her as vulnerable, fragile, and likable.
First off, how did you guys meet?
Through racing?
Through racing?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, how?
I just kind of took off from there, from West Racing, and...
So you raced too, then?
I was in racing up, and we took off from there, and I was in Nikki Ensel. We traveled back and forth, and we only got to see each other like twice a month because of my job and his job, so...
Were you guys dating then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A year and a half, almost 2 years of dating. We got engaged.
Well, it was in the air, huh?
Mm-hmm. And
How long were you guys engaged for?
a year.
A year?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big transition. I know, I've been through that. It's a transition.
I started drinking more. I started calling everything.
So he was just a different person when he drank.
It's completely different, like night and day when you were drinking and when you drank. And
When did you start to notice his drinking increase? Like when in your relationship?
Throughout the interrogation, Nikki fidgets with her hands and the sleeves of her jacket. Her fidgeting and hand movements become worse as she speaks to the inspector about her husband Chad's drinking. To body language experts, hand movements are an important cue in determining someone's emotional state. In Nikki's case, her extreme hand fidgeting could indicate that she is tense, anxious, or even hiding parts of the truth.
what did I leave?
When was that? 2 years. 2 years ago? So that's when this kind of started? When you started noticing it, I guess?
Oh, he's always during our entire relationship.
Right. But when you said it, you saw an increase.
What is that? About 2 years.
Okay. So that's 2 years ago, so about 2018?
17.
Okay.
What he says on it.
Pretty crap.
There's also a clear mismatch between Nikki's shy, mumbling speaking tone and her body language. She does not hesitate to forcefully grab the inspector's arm to demonstrate Chad's alleged abuse. This lack of synchronization between her verbal and physical persona would have instantly revealed to the inspector that a much stronger personality was being concealed behind the demure persona Nikki was performing.
I have to figure out what would be best for the boys and
Right.
like what we could get by with this.
So was there a time that you were like, I think I'm gonna, try for this? I know you said you'd gotten new phones.
The process always.
Yeah.
All the ice storms weather.
Right.
Haven't helped anything.
Show up, yeah. No, I've been...
The Christmas gifts haven't even all the way came yet.
Oh, you Amazon.
Christmas gifts
Oh.
haven't even all the way came yet because of the bad weather. Like, we haven't even had Christmas. We have Christmas, yeah?
As the interrogation progresses, Nikki's mood is wildly inconsistent. Periodically, her shy, quiet demeanor falls away, and she quickly shifts into an upbeat, louder toner. She even occasionally laughs along with the police officer, only to return to mumbling and crying within the same sentence. This once again demonstrates a lack of synchronization that betrays to the police officer that the emotions Nikki displays on the surface may not be entirely trustworthy.
It's gonna be okay.
The inspector notices that his friendly, open-ended approach is not leading Nikki to talk about the events of Chad's death. He uses a very effective body language trick to pressure her into opening up. By closing the physical distance between them and leaning in closer to Nikki, the inspector conveys his strength and dominance over the conversation. This added sense of threat should encourage Nikki to start telling the truth.
Are you doing okay there for finances and stuff and everything like that?
Yeah. But why?
However, it does not seem to work on her. Instead, Nikki reaches in to touch the inspector's hand in an attempt to create a deeper sense of fragility, intimacy, and vulnerability.
You're doing okay though as far as finances and stuff for the hotel and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been renting that hotel?
Wednesday. The insurance is paying now since the 3rd.
Oh, the insurance is paying it. Did you pay for the room before that?
Yeah, just a couple days.
So you just put that on like your credit card or something, or did you? Yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to know.
Did you get the drink?
No.
Okay. Did you see anything when you went back, to the house? Anything weird or anything like that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't think when you took me out there very well. Like, I played up those videos, but...
You pointed out those what?
This was, like, this, the few things I did blog where they're blog.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me clarify. Yeah.
Nikki begins actively using deflection methods to distract the inspector from important moments in Nikki's story. We can see a particularly extreme example of this when Nikki suddenly bursts into louder and more intense crying than before, just after the inspector implies that she might have seen something strange on the night Chad died.
Nikki's fidgeting and fake tears are hard to watch. She's playing the victim, but her body language betrays her. Grabbing the inspector's arm, laughing, then crying, it's all over the place. As someone who's seen trust broken, I feel for Chad's family. How do you act so fragile when you're hiding this? The police saw through it, but it's infuriating to see her dodge the truth for so long.
And Nikki, I think you know how to.
I know. That's why I asked you. Don't do nothing.
One of the crucial moments in Nikki's interrogation is the inspector's shift from a version of the peace method to using the Reid technique. The first step in using the Reid method is to directly present incriminating evidence to the suspect, encouraging them to confess.
Chad did not die in the fire. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Chad was killed by a gunshot.
What?
He was killed by a firearm. We did an autopsy on Chad, and there was no soot in his lungs or in his throat. And that tells us that Chad was dead before the fire started.
In this case, the inspector candidly tells Nikki that Chad did not die in the fire but was shot instead. Her lukewarm response betrays far less surprise than she may have intended and suggests she is already well aware of the circumstances Chad died in.
Nikki, this is Joe Aarons.
Hi.
He's with Bureau of Criminal Investigations.
Yeah.
However, because Nikki still isn't coming clean, a second inspector joins the interrogation to support the application of the Reid technique.
And
I have to go soon.
When the second inspector walks in, Nikki's first response is to state that she has to leave soon. Within less than 3 seconds, Nikki had immediately revealed to both inspectors that the turn of the interrogation had made her extremely skittish and defensive. To the inspectors, this would have been an important red flag as it became clear they were reaching a potential breaking point.
I wanted to come in and we knew that, so we wanted to get me in here as soon as we could. Then, sorry, I had some other things going on too, so I missed a lot of, apparently, you've been talking to him for a while now, okay? So, I guess at this point, I've reviewed everything. The biggest thing you need to be doing right now is you gotta be honest about everything. We have a lot of information. I was at the crime scene. I know you've been talking to him and told him some things. Some of that I can tell you right now is not true. Then explain to me why at 6:32 there was someone back out there. You guys were back out there. Don't claim you don't know. I think that you feel bad about what happened. Here, look at me though. You feel bad about what happened, don't you?
Oh, what?
What's happened to Chad at this point?
I have nothing to do with what happened to Chad.
All right. Here's the deal on this. The longer time goes on, what you do know, it's not going to get any easier. It's going to keep building up and building up on you. You're not going to later on feel better about this. The only way you're going to have any closure to this at all is for you to be honest with us. And since I've been in here, you haven't been honest to me at all.
The second inspector is far more aggressive than the first, proceeding with the Reid technique and reaching a point where he explicitly and repeatedly accuses Nikki of lying, pushing her into longer silences and shorter answers as she tries to piece together a new version of events that makes sense in the face of evidence against her.
I don't know what time are you up. I don't. That's why I asked you guys. I don't know.
But then why do you keep lying to me?
I don't know what happened to him. I don't.
One of the core elements in the application of the Reid method is the development of a theme to present to the suspect and see whether or not their responses confirm it. From the get-go, the second inspector's implicit theme is that Nikki killed Chad, or at least knows who did. Unbeknownst to her, Nikki's rapidly changing narrative is only feeding right into the inspector's theme building.
What's your relationship with Earl?
We've known each other, like I said, he first bought cookies, and from there when we came into the area, I've went and catered or cooked for him before, and we've more so developed a joking relationship. He's hung out with my kids. I've met his daughter.
Have you met his wife? You said he was married,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
No, I've not met his wife. No.
Okay.
No.
And Chad knows Earl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they friends?
They've met. They've hung out. They've, so he's came over and...
One of the topics the second inspector covers in detail is the nature of Nikki's relationship with Earl. Nikki's description of her relationship with Earl only confirms police suspicions that she's omitting important facts to the case. She tells the second inspector that Earl is just a friend, and that he and Chad know each other and have hung out.
So Chad knows Earl?
Mm-hmm.
They get along?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then I understand you were staying at the Stay Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were staying with Earl?
He had already had a room there, and I told him, I was upset Monday, and I said, I just need some time. The furnace isn't working. It's a forever ending thing. I said, I told Chad, I said, I can't keep doing no furnace working. I don't want to be here. I said, it's been out pretty much since.
What did Chad think of you going and staying in a hotel room with Earl? Chad didn't think anything of that? Really?
No.
I'm a married man myself. He's married. That would not fly with... I don't know any guy that would fly with that.
I guess I
Would
know.
go stay... What would you have done if Chad had went and stayed with Earl's wife in a hotel room while you stayed home? Come on. Let's be realistic here. So, do you and Earl... It's more than just a friendship. I mean, there's definitely a romantic relationship there, right?
In response, the officer attempts to get Nikki to admit to her romantic involvement with Earl by highlighting how implausible it seems for Chad to have been fine with Nikki staying in a hotel room alone with Earl.
I want to hear step by step what happened when you and Earl were out there for an hour and 40 minutes.
We went up to the house. We got there. He was drinking. Him and Earl talked.
And where were that when they were talking?
Chad was in his couch,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it, his couch area. And he was drinking. Earl said hi, they talked about whatever. And I told him, I said, I'm not staying here if the furnace doesn't work. It's not happening. I can't do it. The kids can't do it. It's not fair to us. I said, I want nothing more than to be the place that has heat. It's freezing outside, everything else. Me and him are arguing. And finally I just said, that's it. Done. I'm leaving. I left.
And where was Earl during this?
His boots on to come out.
Huh?
His boots on to come out of the house.
Okay. Was he actually, or was he still in the house while you were out there?
Oh, no, he was putting boots on.
Okay. And where was he putting boots on at?
Right in the entryway thing right there.
Okay.
I said, please run out with me. So I just want to check on my bags.
And where was Chad when you went out there?
I slept in the house.
Okay, but where was Chad?
When the house was dark. Most of was still sleeping.
Okay.
I
And did Earl come in then too?
don't think there was anyone in the house.
Think about that for a minute.
The second inspector's application of the Reid method is very effective, causing Nikki to crack and recount an entirely different version of events than the one she had initially presented to the first inspector. This is a major win for the police, as they now have recorded evidence that Nikki was at least partially lying during her first account.
And where'd you go?
Back to the hotel. I was finishing my work. I need my patches. I have high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And if I don't have my patches on, I'll get even sicker.
What did you and Earl do from the time you got back to the hotel room the first time after being out there at your house? Or not the first time, I suppose it would be the second time, when you guys were out there for about an hour and 40 minutes, and then you went back to the hotel.
The Reid technique breaks Nikki down, and it's intense. Her lies about the cameras and Earl fall apart. You can feel the inspector's frustration. It's like they're begging her to come clean. I can't imagine the guilt weighing on her, knowing Chad was gone. Why keep lying when the evidence is this clear? It's a stark reminder. The truth always catches up.
After an effective use of the Reid method by the inspectors, they begin to act as a team, putting pressure on Nikki at the same time and pushing her to answer their questions. As you will soon see, this is the approach that eventually causes Nikki to crack entirely.
They argued.
And then what? They argued and then what?
And then I did them.
Okay.
So it was Earl and Chad, not this mystery guy.
Then what?
I went out into the car. And I waited.
Okay.
And nothing went somewhere to go now.
Why?
You asked what happened.
This is what happened.
And what did Earl say?
Not alive.
Earl said he's not alive. And then what?
He might not be alive. I don't know for sure. So what?
After a 3-hour-long interrogation, Nikki finally breaks. She tells the officers an entirely different version of events than the one she had laid out initially. Nikki plainly states that Earl was the one who shot Chad, and then exited the house to tell her that Chad was not alive.
He came back to start that fire. Who planned that part? Was that you or was that Earl? You didn't plan to come and set the house on fire.
No.
Earl did. Chad is dead and you know that. Why would you still call him then? Whose idea was that?
Every time I'm scared, I still get place in my head.
Okay, so you weren't trying to take time to figure anything out?
No. That's every time I'm scared.
What about then on the second when his co-workers are out at the house and they call you and say, hey, he didn't show up for work, and you just basically tell them, I'm busy at work right now, I'll check on it later. What was going through your mind at that point? Because you knew exactly why Chad wasn't.
I didn't really much about anything. Already.
Why did you talk with Earl when they started calling from work?
No, because I've been crazy busy.
Nikki,
And then I
your
called
husband
him.
just died in a really weird, crazy circumstance that just snowballed out of control. You can't tell me that you weren't thinking of that. That had to be every second of your life from the time it happened.
As Nikki continues her story, the lies she's telling only become clearer. In the 911 call she placed on January 2nd, Nikki mentioned not having seen or heard from Chad since Monday. However, the welfare check request placed by Chad's coworkers to the police on January 2nd tells a different story.
I was calling to see if you guys could do a welfare check on one of our employees. Sure. His wife called in sick for work on Tuesday, and we haven't heard from him since.
This welfare check call is a key piece of evidence for law enforcement. Based on the evidence they have in Nikki's account so far, they can determine that Nikki returned to her and Chad's home between 1:11 and 2:56 a.m. on December 31st, and that she is deliberately leaving out key information, highlighting her potential involvement in Chad's death.
What did Earl say to do? What did you guys talk about? What did you guys think to do? This is that part where I'm trying to understand.
I said to myself, I don't know. I said, Sergeant Man, there's so nice to me. I said, and everybody was being so mean to me about my phone and everything.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want to understand. I said, he's so nice to me. I said, I just want to go talk to him.
Right.
And every time I tried calling you, you never called me back. And I called so many times. I called. I wanted to talk to you earlier.
And Nikki, that's why we're talking now.
And I called.
Okay, and that's why we're talking now, okay?
And I called. And
we can get past that point, okay? That's your conscience telling you to do the right thing, okay? That's the mother in you of 2 children telling you you have to take care of them, you have to come forward, you have to tell them. So tell me what those conversations were so I can understand and I can make sense of this. And like I said, if this is something that's snowballed out of control, like you said, that can make sense, right? But I can't keep dragging these answers out of you. I can't keep dragging what happened. I can't ask for the truth any harder.
I kept telling Earl, I said, I just want to talk to him. I said, I just want to talk to him. And he goes, call him then. And I said, I do. And he never answers my phone and calls. And I said, I don't understand. You never call me back. And I called really like the next day already. And I called. And I
came out with you the Nikki. We're talking now, so that's okay. I apologize, I'm sorry, but we're talking now.
Nikki, we're not questioning why you're only telling us this now.
Right, we understand.
This I understand.
This is understandable, that.
I said, I just don't understand. I said, it's crazy. I said, it went so fast. I said, I can't even think. It's just nuts. I said, it went from.
Finally, the inspectors succeed in getting Nikki to write a formal confession. However, her last recorded action during the interrogation incriminated her even more.
You don't have to be like that about it.
Nikki was seen attempting to rip up a part of her written confession, and the first inspector has no choice but to forcibly confiscate the document from her. Nikki's interview strategy made for a long, winding interrogation, but ultimately did not work in her favor. She quickly came face to face with the reality that the police had bought her act from the start. The evidence stacked against her was simply too great. Though the first inspector had initially given her the benefit of the doubt, Nikki was so distracted by acting out her false, shy persona that she failed to consider the possibility that the inspector might have already suspected her. By lying and omitting incriminating details, Nikki only laid the ground for her eventual conviction and wasted her time trying to present a fragile, vulnerable facade to an already skeptical officer. On top of that, Nikki's behavior and body language during the interrogation betrayed her. Her reactions were extreme, mismatched, and seemed tone-deaf considering the recent death of her husband. She swung wildly from extreme crying to laughter. She spoke extremely softly and quietly, yet made swift, abrupt movements, grabbing police officers to demonstrate her fabricated versions of events and even attempting to destroy evidence. After Nikki's interrogation, a warrant was issued for Earl's arrest. Both Nikki and Earl were tried in 2022. Nikki's final confession and trial evidence would reveal that Nikki and Earl had planned Chad's murder together. In fact, the chain of events that would lead to Chad's death on December 31st began 5 days prior. On December 26th, Nikki Ensel took out a renter's insurance policy with a benefit of $31,000. She then sent proof of this insurance policy to Earl's cell phone. With the aim of claiming insurance money and starting over together, Nikki and Earl went to work. In the early hours of December 31st, one or both of them shot Chad and planted the propane tank, alcohol, and shotgun around him, staging the scene to appear as a suicide. They also started several fires inside the home in the hopes that enough fire damage would be done to cover up crucial evidence for anyone looking too closely. We can only speculate that the delay between Chad's death on December 31st and Nikki's 911 call on January 2nd was a result of the cold weather in North Dakota, which continually snuffed out the fires Nikki and Earl were trying to ignite. Presumably, Nikki only phoned 911 once she felt the crime scene was suitably tampered with. Only 2 days after placing her 911 call, Nikki had already reached out to her insurance company, beginning the process of claiming for fire damages on the house.
So, my name is Bobby McMillian. I'm calling with Homeside Insurance. This is regarding the claim that was reported. I'm the adjuster assigned. Just wanted to touch base with you to look more information.
Yeah, I was getting ready to call you to figure out what our next steps need to be. I've been working on my list.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to the house.
Sorry.
I went to the house yesterday, and deputy took me out there.
Did you take any type of photos or anything like that?
I couldn't. I started crying until they got me back out. Because my husband passed away in the fire.
She wouldn't get to claim any insurance compensation, however, as Nikki Sue Ensel was convicted of all the charges laid against her.
We find the defendant, Nikki Sue Melissa Ensel, guilty for all 3 charges.
She was found guilty by the jury of conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit arson, and conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. Nikki faces life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. Earl, on the other hand, faces 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole. That's a long time without Nikki's cookies, which apparently are to die for, well actually, apparently to kill for. In this day, Nikki continues to claim that she was not the one to pull the trigger. Meanwhile, Earl asserts that Nikki shot Chad, and he only staged the fire to help cover Nikki's tracks. It seems the web of lies that Nikki and Earl spun for the police still has them both trapped in its grasp.
Nikki and Earl's convictions feel like justice, but it's bittersweet. Chad's gone, and their lies couldn't hide the truth. Nikki's still pointing fingers, but the jury saw through it. It's a gut punch to think greed and betrayal ended a life. What drives someone to this? Let's reflect on Chad's memory and the cost of deception.